So earlier we've talked about the fact that we are at all times immersed in data of various sorts that our senses are picking up and that we are consciously or subconsciously analyzing and drawing conclusions. And although there might be some kind of analysis involved in that subconscious process, we would rather approach data analysis as a conscious process in lieu of a subconscious one. And for that matter, we define data analysis as the conscious search for patterns in data, the explanation of why those patterns exist, and the justification of how those patterns answer the research question. So in what follows, we discuss three basic steps that are involved in data analysis, and those are the preliminary analysis, the in-depth analysis, and the analysis report. And though we present the process here as a linear process, it is worth keeping in mind that research as a whole is a messy and recursive process. Now, let's discuss the preliminary analysis. So, we begin data analysis from the moment we start collecting data. And this is, of course, after we have formulated a strong research question and have aligned an appropriate research methodology to collect data. So, a preliminary analysis would be as you're transcribing an interview and you start noticing issues that deserve further investigation. Or as you're taking observation notes, you discover patterns that may partially solve the research question. So a preliminary analysis at this stage could lead to one of the following three possibilities. So possibility one is that patterns are uncovered and they enable to answer the research question. Possibility two is that patterns are uncovered but do not enable to answer the research question. And possibility three is that no patterns are uncovered. So if you find yourself in possibility one, the work obviously seems done, but that also might be an indication that your research question might have been a really easy question. Maybe it's the type of question that did not deserve research to be answered, or the answer to your research question might have been out there in plain sight. Now, if you find yourself in possibility two and possibility three, the work is obviously not done. So you could either undertake a second, third, fourth, even fifth analysis of the same data, or we have the possibility to convert that data in a new format with the hope to uncover subtle patterns. And that's where we're leading to the in-depth analysis. So the in-depth analysis is really an analysis of the data with a critical eye. And that would involve immersing ourselves in the data for as long as it will take to answer the research question. And that also would involve maybe converting the data into a new format with the hope to uncover patterns that are even subtler. Now, in this process of converting the data, it's important that the new format be an accurate and faithful representation of the original format. And to increase the persuasion power of our argument, we need to explain to the audience how this new format is indeed an accurate and faithful representation of the original format. Now, to kind of show you how converting the data into a new format could be helpful. So imagine, for example, that you're transcribing an interview that you conducted with your high school teacher, and you start noticing that she uses a number of keywords to talk about the benefits of studying psychology. Then you use those keywords to understand your original data and to answer your research question about the value of majoring in psychology in college. Or imagine that your original data is simply the number of Ebola cases in the affected countries. And as you project that data on a map, you discover a trend in the way the virus is spreading. The most important thing to remember in the in-depth analysis phase of research is that this is a recursive phase. So the answer to the question as to how much time should be spent in that section is really left to the researcher's satisfaction with the uncovered patterns. And if we're satisfied with the patterns, then we can go on to the analysis report section. And if we are not satisfied with the patterns, we might need to go back and either collect more data or make changes to our methodology. So the third section of the basic analysis process is what we labeled the analysis report. And this is basically an argumentation phase. So all we do in that section is to make sure that the work that was done in the preliminary analysis or the in-depth analysis are well reflected to the audience, because the audience cannot really see what goes on in the preliminary analysis or the in-depth analysis. So it is only through the way this phase is implemented that the audience will get an idea of how much work was done in the preliminary analysis and the in-depth analysis. And in this last section of research, that is where we will tell the audience the patterns we uncovered, and we will justify the presence of some patterns and maybe the absence of expected patterns, and we will tell the audience how the patterns we uncovered help answer the research question. Now, audience awareness becomes really important in this particular phase of research, because that will determine the decisions that will be made as to how the data will be presented or the findings will be presented. And this phase of the data analysis cannot be effective without the power of good rhetoric.
Vizi online texts are a new kind of textbook built with the help of great subject matter experts. These new learning resources have already helped thousands of students succeed. Our original content uses animations, simulations, video and graphics, self-assessments, exercises, and review materials to engage students in their study. Our approach is proven to improve learning outcomes, and that's why Vizi exists, to transform lives by making education more engaging.